Hello. I live in a very small world that routinely butts up against a very big world, which is a thought that I've been wrestling with a lot recently. So I have my water, I have my pretzels, and I just wanted to think out loud for a little bit, if that's okay with you. If you don't know me, my name is Hanna. I'm a writer and I work in the book publishing industry in multiple ways. I have my own freelance company where I help authors publish and create their books, but I also work as the director of marketing and public relations for a small press, where I also work with authors to get their books out into the world, and also oftentimes I'm helping them to create their books. That's what I do. I help authors put their work out into the world and get it in front of people where they can read it, which is super cool. That's pretty nifty. But what that also means is that I, from my little home office in my little basement in the house that I grew up in, am routinely working with people who I may never meet except across a screen, and who all have their own very vibrant, very large individual lives. And sometimes that just gets me. It's a concept that I talked about way back when I started this channel in 2018. But the realization that every single person on the planet has their own inner world and inner life in which they are the protagonist is a baffling concept. How are we all living in the same world in different ways? That is huge. It's huge. And it has a lot of really wonderful benefits. Like, okay, for example, benefit number one, I care deeply about things like fighting against human trafficking, right? That's one of the things that I care very deeply about. That's part of why when, as a personal choice I chose to sponsor a child through compassion in an area that was statistically a higher risk area for human trafficking. I could have chosen anywhere in the world. I could have chosen any child. I specifically chose this child because she is at a higher risk and at an unfortunately risky age group as well. And I wanted to make sure that even if it was only one life, and I don't know that I'll be able to save her, right? But I can make an intentional choice to maybe help her, to help her have options where that's not something that she or her parents have to get into because of their circumstances, right? So that's option number one, right? But you might not care so much about that, even though I believe you really firmly should. You might care more, like one of my authors that I work with. They wrote Still Positive, a wonderful memoir about living life post the AIDS epidemic with AIDS after a blood transfusion, and the impact that had on her life, and especially when she was diagnosed with that, and the fact that that's not a diagnosis, that there's no cure. It just keeps going, right? She cares very strongly about that, and I love that she cares very strongly about that because it means that somebody is caring, somebody is doing something, and it takes some of the pressure off for me to care about everything in my small little world where I routinely bump up against others in a really big world. I love that she cares that deeply about that, so much so that she wrote a whole book about it, started a whole foundation for it. She's really cool. You should check out her stuff. She's a really cool person, and I am honored and blessed that I get to work with her routinely. That doesn't mean that I'm going to champion her cause as strongly as I champion the ones that I care so deeply about, right? Which is baffling. It's so interesting to me how the human mind works and how we choose the things we care about so deeply, right? Like even in the stories that I engage with, even in the plot lines that I've been strongly gripped by for my whole life. Like, I just, for the heck of it, started rewatching one of my favorite shows from when I was in middle school. And now, with my adult lens, looking back on that, I'm like, oh, so that's why I liked this movie, this show. Because it has all of the elements of the things that have inspired myself in my art, right? All of the things that I needed when I was a kid to be told, hey, you're not alone, and also having stories like this in your mind does not make you insane. We're all present in that show, and it's a widely accepted show. The movie in question here is Tom and Huck, the Disney retelling of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. So it told me these thoughts, these plot lines, these dilemmas have been around since Mark Twain. Okay? Do you know how good it feels to know that I am thinking similar thoughts, dealing with similar problems, dealing with different underlying or the same underlying issues and dangers that were in the world when Mark Twain wrote The Adventures of Tom Sawyer? Is both comforting and terrifying, because the world has not changed, like, at all. And that feels like that was a long time ago. It wasn't. That was not a long time ago. But, like, it feels like it was a long time ago to me, because I'm still new in this world. I've only been here for just over 2 decades, right? I'm still new in this world, even though I've been here my whole life, which feels like a long time. I can't imagine what it must feel like to be 70 or 80 or 90 years old and realize, wow, I've lived through so much. The world has changed so much in my lifetime. Like, that's crazy. I don't know. The world is so big. The world is so big, and I am so grateful that everyone in it has the opportunity to care so deeply and passionately about the things that they all care about, to the point that everything gets cared for, if we're doing it right, you know? And, like, I do think that there's something to be said about being very intentional about how we choose to support things, right? It's like, I was a barista for a long time. If you've been following me for a while, you know that. I've talked about it in the past. I have written entire short stories loosely inspired by that time in my life. And so I care deeply about having good coffee. I like coffee. I drink coffee every morning. I enjoy it. I want it to be good. But, like I said previously, I also care deeply about not exploiting humans to produce that good coffee. And so it was fantastic news to me when John and Hank Green started the Good Store and the Awesome Coffee Club, where I could get ethically sourced, sustainably sourced, good tasting coffee shipped to my door for the same cost of going to Starbucks for a bag of Starbucks coffee, right? Like, that was phenomenal news for me, because that meant that I could have the coffee that I care about support causes that they care about. And that, I mean, there's some overlap there. They also want ethically sourced, sustainably sourced coffee, but the proceeds are also all going to charity, which is fantastic. So if you don't know about the Awesome Coffee Company, you should go check out good.store. I'll put a link down below. They don't know that I'm talking about this. I doubt that they even know who I am. That's okay. Small world, big world. There's actually even an even bigger world. I was startled. I had the absolutely wonderful opportunity to go see Hank Green perform his stand-up comedy show, which was phenomenal. I laughed so hard. Thank you, Hank. That was so good. If you happen to see this, bravo. That was a good time. Thank you. But in the process of that, I discovered that an unfortunate number of my friends had no idea who Hank is. Some of them knew who John was because of The Fault in Our Stars. And I was like, yeah, so you know him, his brother. And they're like, well, I don't like stand-up comedy. And I was like, how do you not like stand-up comedy? And also, how do you not know who Hank Green is? We're the same age. Did he not teach you high school biology and chemistry and science in general? Like, what is happening? What world do I live in which you don't know who this person is? Because I live in my own little universe, my own small little bubble. with the influences impacting my own small little bubble. And it's baffling to me that that can happen in such an interconnected world. It's so bizarre and lovely and incredible and terrifying. Because in my mind, the Green Brothers, I've talked about them before, they're like top of the line celebrities. Like, I care about what they're doing way more than I care about like what the Kardashians are doing. I couldn't even say their names. Like, I never talk about the Kardashians, so but I talk about what John and Hank are doing all the time. Anyway, I live in a small little world in my own little bubble, but I routinely bump up against really, really big worlds where people are making differences, or they're trying to, or they care deeply about something, and I get to like join them in that for a little bit, and that's probably my favorite part of my job. And also one of the most intimidating things, because it means that I am actively involved in people's lives, and I often forget that, because from my perspective, all I do is go upstairs to the main floor, eat breakfast, go down to the basement, spend 7 to 8 hours there, and then hang out with my same like 6 to 10 people, depending on the setting, depending on the day, depending on the routine. Rinse, repeat, shuffle, right? And I'm baffled and honored that I'm gonna throw this water across the room. If I'm not careful, I'm gonna set it down. I'm baffled and honored that I get to be part of so many people's lives without even knowing it. So if you're watching this and I'm a routine part of your life in the way that John and Hank are a routine part of my life, hi, thank you. I don't know what to do with that. But I'm blessed and honored that you would choose to spend your time listening to me, of all people. If you've stuck through this video as I've rambled and thought out loud about how my world interacts with the larger worlds of those around me, and also the larger world on the whole, thank you for sticking around this long. This is not my usual content, but it just felt right today. So anyway, yeah, if you like books, if you like reading, if you like writing, if you like some not exactly philosophical, but just some random person's reflections on life and poetry, stick around. That's what I do. I also sometimes will do like film and book reviews. I go to a lot of movies. I watch a lot of shows. I talk about stories in as many forms as I can find them. So if you like that sort of thing, stick around. Thanks. And John, Hank, if by any way this video actually reaches you, thank you so much for the impact you've had on my life, and also for the impact you're having on the world. You guys are killing it, and I look up to you so strongly. Okay. Thanks. Bye.